Okay, here we go. So I'm going to make an apple, or actually I'm going to do a mixed fruit cobbler. Crumble, actually. So there's fruit cobbler, crisp, and crumbles. Okay, they're all kind of interchangeable. Most people don't know the difference between them. Most people don't care. But if you're going for a certain taste, or if you want to be technical about it, you want to know the difference. All right, so a fruit cobbler is a biscuit topping. So you'll have a baked fruit filling with a soft biscuit, sweet biscuit mix that you plop on top. So it's a sweet biscuit topping is your cobbler. A fruit crisp is a crumble topping that usually has more crispy, crunchy texture to it. And that usually has oats added to it or some different nuts, right? So it's a little more crunchy versus a soft biscuit topping. And then you have fruit crumbles. A fruit crumble is basically almost like a sugar cookie, pie crust, biscuit scone kind of texture, crumbled on top and baked. So that's your differences. One's soft biscuit, one is crispy with oats or nuts, and then the third, the crumble, is more of a crumbly, sweet pastry pie dough type deal. It's very good. Okay, so the fruits. You can use any fruits. Usually juicier fruits are better because you want to make a juice with it. You don't want to use bananas. I was thinking about talking to you guys about this. Any fruits, but really you wouldn't use bananas because they're dry. There's no juice to them. But that being said, it could be any fruits. So basically a recipe in which I attached to the classroom for you is a basic recipe for any fruits. Because you can look up, peach cobbler or apple cobbler, berry cobbler. But if you know the general recipe, you can use any fruit you have in the house or you see fruits that are on sale, right? Like at home, I keep cranberries in the freezer like all year. I store them in the winter when they're in the grocery stores, and I buy bags of them and freeze them. So I like to use them all year. They're so good for you. And I put it in my smoothies, or I'll throw them in pie filling through the year, right? Any fruit, I'll just throw in a couple handfuls of cranberries for my fruit pies or my fruit cobblers, and it makes a really nice, it's a bright color, and it adds kind of a tartness to the fruit mix. So I'll keep that in the freezer. Pineapple, canned pineapple, it's not the best. You'd rather have fresh, but having a fresh pineapple on hand is kind of the plan for that, to ripen it. But canned pineapple, I'll open it and freeze it for my smoothies again. So I'll have that in the freezer. I started throwing in a couple handfuls of pineapple in my apple pie. I started that last summer. Apple pie, so apples, and I'll throw in a handful of pineapple and the cranberry, and it made the best pie. Everybody was asking me, wow, what's that flavor in there? What's that? Like, oh, there's pineapple. I'm like, no, I can't believe there was pineapple in the apple pie. So, cobbler, crumble. It is basically, the recipe I gave you is basically 7 cups of fruit. That's it. So I'm just going to measure out 7 cups of mixed fruit. For today, I have apples, pineapple, and cranberry. For the apples, to remind you from last semester, when you're peeling a lot of apples, get water. Put the apples in the water as you're peeling all of them, because if you're going to peel all of them, as you peel one, then 5 more, they're going to start to brown as you're peeling. So if you dunk them in water, you have to peel a lot of them, they'll stay white. Okay? So your fruit, I peeled them all. I got red and white. Green, I'm sorry. Different apples have different textures. We'll go over this later. Apples are more tart and they're firmer. The different types of red apples are sweeter and they bake mushier. So it's different textures. I just happened to get both colors today, but it doesn't matter which apples. I'll tell you another secret. I bought a bunch of apples in the fall. They were still in my refrigerator in December, January. And so they were kind of shriveled. They weren't moldy. They weren't bruised. They were just kind of tired. So I made a cobbler with them, with some old apples that had been in the refrigerator. And it was wonderful, wonderful. So, yeah, if you got some tired fruit, as long as it's not bad and moldy, you're fine. So we're going to get 7 cups of mixed fruit. Another thing, your apple. You don't need to cut the apple in half and dig out the core. You're just going to cut around it. Right? And I have the core here. A little bit there. Pieces, you want thin pieces. You can do whole slices or you can do chunks. I'm doing kind of thin chunks. It's not the slice of the whole apple. You don't want too big of pieces because it will take longer to bake. You don't want pieces too small or it'll just bake into apple mush. You want to see chunks in your apple cobbler. Okay. Let's see. And remember your claw, right? Your hand. Don't want to cut your fingertips. Your knife. Yeah. So hopefully, you guys, if you have any fruit in the house, you can make a cobbler this weekend. All right, it'd be nice and warm. Oh, it'd be wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to pop it in I have a measuring cup here. I need about 7 cups, like I said. Another trick, if you start making this all the time, you can just get your baking dish and throw your fruit in here as you cut it up. Throw your fruit in your baking dish and kind of eyeball it, and know it's going to bake down a little bit, but you can also do that. You don't have to measure. This is really super easy once you get used to it, once you get comfortable with it. But this has a 2-quart measure, and 2 quarts is 8 cups. If you haven't covered yet, we'll do that in our kitchen weights chapter. That's 8 cups. I'm just going to go a little below the line. Got one more, I think. And then I'm going to add about a cup of cranberry and about a cup of pineapple. Now, once you get your fruit, you'll see the recipe gives you a ratio of sugar. It says, what does it say? It says 1/2 to 1 cup of sugar. They give you a range because you're going to add the sugar based on the sweetness of the fruit. If you got some really sweet apples or sweet berries, right? Or pineapple is extra sweet, I won't use a lot of sugar. If I'm just doing cranberry, which is very tart, I know I need a lot more sugar. And then apples, if they're sweet, red apples are sweet. Green apples are more tart, so I would need more sugar for the tart apples. So that, I'm going to throw in a couple cranberries. And then pineapple. Now the pineapple, I'm going to chop it up a little bit because I don't know if I want big chunks. I want kind of just for an accent. I'm just going to run my knife through it. You can even use crushed pineapple. Okay. Pineapple. It just has a nice sweet tang to just apple. It's really good. It's just fun. It's different. All right. So there's my fruit. That's about 7 cups. So I'm going to pop it in my bowl. Okay, sugar. When you're measuring, be sure and look at the measuring cup because when you go to measure, 1 cup looks a lot like a 1/2 cup when you're not used to it. So it calls for 1/2 to 1 cup sugar. I'm going to do a cup because I have the cranberries, which are really tart. There's my sugar. It calls for lemon juice, and again, it says 1 to 3 teaspoons of lemon juice. That's to add tartness. But I have cranberries, which are really tart, so I'm going to skip the lemon. But you do need lemon if you're just making apple, because the lemon adds a nice edge to the apple. If you didn't put the lemon in, it would be kind of flat. So the lemon just kind of freshens it up a little bit. But again, I have cranberries, which are very tart. All right, cornstarch. Now in the bakery or in the kitchen here, we have all these white powders, right? So be sure and read your label. And when you're measuring, be sure and measure correctly, not keeping, all right? You want it nice and level. Now it says 1 to 3 tablespoons, depending on the juiciness of the fruit. Like if I was doing blueberries or raspberries, those are very juicy. So you need more cornstarch to thicken it. But apples are very firm. They don't have a lot of juice. So I'm not going to do the full 3 tablespoons. I think I'll do just 1. And see level. There. And then, some spices. So I got cinnamon. I'm just going to eyeball it because I love cinnamon. And with the apples is good. Cinnamon. And I'm going to add a little vanilla. I think vanilla is wonderful. Add a little vanilla. You could add ginger. I'm going to ginger, but I don't want to get crazy. You got ginger, nutmeg, allspice, right? So that's it. And just stir it all together. So you got the sugar, the lemon for tartness if you needed it, and cornstarch for thickener. You can use flour, but cornstarch is clearer. It's just nicer with the berries. Okay, toss it all together real good. How easy is that? Any fruit in your fridge, old fruit, fruit on sale, frozen fruit, whatever. You can even use canned fruit. If you really want peach cobbler, you can use canned or frozen. Frozen is preferable. Pop it in your container. That is it. So you need to make a fruit dessert. People will love it. Just spread it out, and that's it. Okay, I'm going to make a huge one for the teachers tomorrow. What I want to tell you. Fruit. Oh, be sure and have your oven on, getting it hot. Okay, so there's your fruit. Now the topping. We're going to make a crumble topping. I could have used a crisp if I had oats. I could add nuts to it. Right. Now I also want to tell you about the measuring the flour. So it calls for 1 cup of flour. Okay, now remember when we measure flour, you do not want to pack it because it won't be a correct measure. It should be light. So I kind of aerate it a little. Scoop it and level, okay? Very important. Flour, you got to measure correctly. Too much flour, it'll be dry and crumbly for different like pie doughs and cookie doughs and such. This isn't so particular. All right, flour, sugar. Called 1/2 cup of brown sugar packed. Another thing with sugar, you can use brown or white. Brown gives it a little more caramely flavor to it. You can even use it in the mix, in the filling. You can use white or brown, interchangeable. Sugar, baking powder. Now, with baking powder, again, be sure and read your label, okay? Because they look alike, especially in the kitchen here, the containers are alike, and it's really easy to grab the wrong one. So be sure and read your label. They are not interchangeable. We add a little baking powder because it kind of fluffs up the crumb filling, makes it not sound so hard crumbly. Okay, and they want a teaspoon. Again, level measure. Cinnamon. Yeah, I gotta have some cinnamon. Nutmeg would be good too. And dash of salt. Salt, they tell you 1/4. Salt's good. You want to have salt because it perks up the sweetness of the fruit. You gotta have salt. Without it, it's flat. All right, so we mix that up. And then our butter. Now this butter is room temperature and they cut it up. Some recipes have melted butter. Some have soft. This is cold, but we're just gonna work in like a pie crust. Chopping it up first. Then I'll just work it up with my fingers. You could also add melted. It's a little more awkward to mix it up and then spread it around on the fruit. You want it crumbly. This is also basically a streusel, which you will see on crumble pies, streusel topped pies, or streusel on a muffin. This is it. This is the same mix. So I'm just working in that butter. You see they're very large pieces of butter. I'm going to work it in until it's small and crumbly. This, you can put it in your mixer. You can use a pastry cutter. You can use a fork. Just use my hands. This crumble topping is also easy to freeze. You can make a bunch of it in the mixer paddle, and then you can freeze it. So it's always ready to grab, easy. So again, this is an easy dessert. It's easy to make a lot of for a large group. I like to make big pans of it and share it with the neighbors. They love it. Okay, and it's quick too. I'm talking a lot, but if you were to do this, on your own, it's very quick. Okay, I think that is it. And then just spread it out and then throw it in the oven. Now, baking it. It's very important to bake it fully. It's going to be a golden brown on top, but what you want to see is bubbling fruit juices coming up through the topping. It has to bubble because the bubbling is showing you that the cornstarch has been cooked and that will fully thicken your filling. Okay, so it's very important to see the bubbling juices coming up through the topping. Okay, even if you were to do biscuit topping, which is great, make a biscuit topping and just plop it on top, throw it in the oven, and all these red juices start bubbling up in between the nooks and crannies of your topping. It's very cool. Okay, there's your cobbler. We'll throw it in the oven, and then I'll show you a picture of it when it's done. Okay, you guys have any questions? All right, we'll talk. All right, here we go. I'm going to unrecord here.